Okay, so let's just get started here. I wanted to show a little bit about Adobe Photoshop with timeline, stuff that we talked about in class today, and let me just get this rolling for you. So I'll just make a new document. I'm going to start with the film and video, just like we did in class with the 720/480 aspect ratio. And okay, and then here is the video surface. Remember, we were going to use rulers today in class, so I'll open those up. Those are also right here in view. It's also Command R. So one thing that I did show is making sure we have everything marked right in the window. So I'm going to bring over some guides. I'm going to pull down one from the top, just holding down the mouse and dragging. And I'll do this for I can do this for the sides. I actually meant to do that for the bottom too. Let's bring that down. That just helps us guide it in for each of the edges also. Okay, so now I have my surface in here. Let me bring in some graphics that I will draw. So I'll make a new layer. And then I'm just going to use some shapes for this just to give a quick demo. So I'm going to make a circle, hold down the Shift key and stretch it out to make a circle. So now I have my circle in on the surface, and I'm going to give this a stroke so it has a border, and then I'll give it a red fill. Okay, so now I have this animation, or sorry, this graphic. Now let's animate it. Oh, and actually, before we do that, let me also make a second layer so we have two things to work with. So I had my red ball that I created. Now in the next layer, I'm going to make another one. So I'm going to put this down on the bottom right. And let me back up and do that again, holding down the Shift key. And there we go. Give this also a stroke. And there we go. Okay, so I have those two set up there. Let me close these windows. And now let's start working with our timeline. So on the bottom we press Create Timeline, and you can see here, oops, let me just stretch this up for you so you can see. We have our two video tracks. I'm going to switch this over so we're in frame by frame. So that's this button down here that converts us to a frame animation. So now we have this one frame that we're working with, and we're going to extend this so we can work with each of the objects separately. And this is what I was telling you in class today. It's good to create your assets or your graphics first and then start moving them around. It's really, in Photoshop, when you use timeline, it's something that's it's very picky on how it works. So you need to do it that way with this. If we were using After Effects, it would be slightly different, but not with Photoshop this time. So anyway, moving on. So now the next thing we need to do is make the second frame. So we want to duplicate over this frame that we have to make the new one. So we have two that are going to be the same. And then we need to just select on the layer that we want to move. So I'll select on ellipse 1, which is the red, and I'm going to move this down. And make sure you're in the second frame. So you can see down here in the bottom I have the red one's on top in frame 1, and it's moved down the bottom in frame 2. And then I'm going to select the second layer and move the green circle up to the top. So you can see these are now, when I click on each frame, they change their orientation to the opposite view. Okay, so there's the basics of this animation. Now let's add some keyframes in this so we get some more smooth action from going from point A to then point B. You can see on the bottom it has 5 seconds. I'm going to change this now so it has no delay in here. So we're just working with frames right now. We don't have any delay in between the frames. And then the next thing is I want to tween these animations. So this little button down here on the bottom, I can select this, and I want to tween, say let's do about 2 seconds of time here. So I'm going to say about 60 frames I want to select. Okay, so now you can see I have a larger amount of frames in front of us, and if I was to play this back from the beginning, you can see now it kind of flips through each of the frames. Okay, so let's now flip to the other view, the video timeline, and you can see now we have these two video lines. It looks more like a video editor in this view, and we can, holding down on this blue icon, I can scrub through this animation one by one. Okay, so there is our first two frames, first two animated objects. Okay, so from this, what I want to do is we can either add some transitions to this, or we don't have any overlay. They're just on each side of the frame. But I could add some opacity to this. If I wanted one to come in a little later, or if I wanted one to disappear before it finishes. Okay, so I'm going to make the green one that is coming down to kind of start to appear about midway as it moves downward. Okay, so I'm going to start here on the first frame. I'm going to press this little stopwatch, and that gives me this diamond. And about I'd say about 1 second in here, I'm going to then press this diamond that's just to the left of the stopwatch. So these are my keyframes for where I want things to change in the animation. Okay, and I actually want to do one more right about in the middle of those two, now that I think about it. Okay, so I'm going to start off this animation with the green being totally gone. Okay, and then as I get to this one, I want the green object to be maybe about 75%. And then when I get to this one, I want it to be about 100%. So now when I go from the beginning, I just have the red ball, but then I go down to the halfway through, you see the green one comes in. Okay, and I'll do that with the red one now too, just to do some repetition with this. So we'll start out with the red one. We'll move down, we'll do the keyframes at the same point. And we'll do another one right here. And then we'll start out with seeing the red ball, and then at the middle of the movement, we're going to, oops, didn't mean to do that. We're going to move it down to maybe about 50%. And then by here, we're going to go down to 25%. And then by the end, we're going to go to 0. Here. Okay. So now you can see I have one ball coming in, one ball going away, as we toggle back and forth with these effects. Okay, so now the next thing that we want to do in this particular video, besides, we could add some styles, but it's not going to really work in this example. We can then output this video, which is the next really important part that I want you to know in this section. So this is simple, but I want you to follow the sort of the recipe, so to speak, of the way I do it. So, so when we go into this menu on the very bottom, and actually, you know, in this, I can see that you're not seeing that in this video that I'm making. If you go down this menu, down further on, there's one called Render Video, and you select that Render Video option, and you come up with a window. 1 second. Okay, so in here, this is what we need to use to actually render the video out. And we want to do all frames. We can select which ones we want to render, and then we also need to name it. Also, make sure you know where you're going to save it. So I'm just going to save mine to the desktop for the time being, and I will call this red ball. And render. It shouldn't take too long for this particular video, but you can see there is it did take maybe about 5 seconds. If it is going to be longer, you do need to leave some time when you're working on this project. It's not going to be automatic, so just keep that in mind when you're working on it. There's the video right there. To leave time when you're working on the project for the video to render. Sometimes, depending on if you're going to be doing like 10-20 seconds, you could spend half an hour, 45 minutes just rendering it, depending on what you have and the layers that you're working on it. It could be longer too, so just leave the time to work on it. So let's look at what we have. So I'll double click on it, and here's the video. And there we go. So this is something we can use in any video editor or put it online or just about anything we need. Okay, so and this is an MP4 format, so it's for a streaming format too. It's for web streaming, and there you go. Okay, so if you have any questions, email me. I think I will also send over the assignment, and you will be hearing from me soon. See ya.